Hey guys, the other day I posted a video of the three phases, understanding the three phases of pressure in the whitetail hunting. And that's why I'm standing here. This is a perfect location to do this next step of this video, is because this property is, in this location especially, is a full testament of just that whole process being put together. Understanding it, being blessed enough, like I've said before, probably say it 110 times again, but in the future, but just understanding, being blessed enough to have the opportunity to take that three phases of that spectrum and work on it and tweak on it, understand it, and fully develop why I brought to you guys and why I teach that to my clients, the three phases and how that all ties in, and understanding where stand placements need to be, understanding what phase you're in, and so you're not a step behind. And it's a real thing. It's a real tool. It's a real powerful piece of the puzzle that is often not finished like this, or not added to, or not figured out, or we just as humans, especially deer hunters, we get in this rhythm of just going down the road of repetitiveness year after year after year, stand after stand after stand, same stand time and time again, I should say, whether that's in the youth hunt or whether that's 2 months later, 3 months later during the gun season, and you're in the same stand. And that to me is just folks, it's not that they're bad hunters, it's not that they don't understand hunting, it's that they don't understand where the pressure met the stand location. That's where that whole spectrum is. And this week I want to thank everybody that has tuned into that. I had a lot of good comments, direct messages right to me about that, and a lot of people can feel that passion that I have. And it's something that, I'm not the first one to ever talk about it in the world, but it's something that I feel very passionate about, because like I said, I've used that as a tool on how to put my clients on successful deer, successful mature deer, not only in the Midwest, where pressure is a little bit lower, a lot lower in some areas than like we are here in Michigan, but my paycheck depended on successful clients in Wisconsin, here in Michigan, and other high pressured states. So with that said, this portion of this video ties into this, and what this portion is understanding. If you we're just going to use a scenario, understanding. So the topic is understanding how to implement a stand location. How do you implement, and where do you implement a stand location if you come in to the spectrum already a step behind? And where I see that is leased farms or hunting groups, clubs. A lot of this happens in the South. Bigger clubs, more people; smaller clubs, more people. That kind of outlook. This ties into that situation, but it also ties into high pressured state, Michigan, New York, Wisconsin, high pressured states, Pennsylvania. I got a couple clients down there that are dealing with this, and what that is small parcels, high pressure. This is something that you have to focus on and understand. And once you do, things this year are going to escalate, and this will all make sense. And when we talk about this next year, when you're tuning into different videos, and or this same topic a year from now, you'll understand it completely, and a lot more personal, on a personal level. If you're a landowner, or you are a public land owner or hunter that hunts on public ground in a high pressure state, or you own property in a high pressured state, this will ring true to you. So the guys tuning in from the Midwest, like I said in the first portion of this video, hang in there with me and understand that what you have is a totally different platform than what some of us have in high pressured states, but the theory still rings true. It's just more predominant in high pressured states. Not that you're any less hunter in the Midwest. I've lived there, I've been there, done that, bought the t-shirt kind of thing. And that area is what it is because of you guys. The Midwest, I've said this before, and I'll say it again to 100 more clients, and 100 more seminars and talks and whatever. The Midwest is built off from the hunters that are there. So the guys in this industry, and in the hunting industry in general, that are taking the shine off Midwestern hunters, because it's not what it's that's not real world hunting, or I could go on and on with terms that people throw daggers at guys in the Midwest. Folks, here's the truth: is the Midwest is the Midwest because of the hunters and the DNR that manage and elect to make those states what they are. So don't take anything from them, learn from them. But on the other side of that spectrum, the Midwestern guys can learn from high pressured states, such as myself, such as guys that design and implement properties in both regions. There's a lot of guys in the Midwest that could be even better at killing mature deer, have even more success if they implemented the high pressure mentality into their farms. And that's where this comes in. So back on the topic here, the knowing how to where to place a stand if you come into that spectrum. If you're in, so the scenario that we're going to use, that I thought about here, is what we're going to use is we're going to use a hunt club situation where you come in, or a lease. Let's just call it a lease, and there's only certain parts of the year that you can hunt it. And I got a good friend of mine, family member, that actually owns or leases some ground out of state. I've got a lot of guys that are doing this now, and I think some of this will ring true to you. You have a short window. You have 2 days, 3 days here. You might be gone for a week, and you have 2-3 days here. But you're not the only one in that time frame that's hunting that property. And leases are expensive, so sometimes it takes 2-3 guys to get the job done as far as leasing them. So whether you're all together at the same time, or you go down 1 week, the hunting partner goes down the following week, you and your wife or your kids go down the next week, what I'm saying is, what happens is everybody's mindset is not the same. So what you're entering into, everybody's mindset and accessibility and how to get to stands, and their stand is not your stand. This is what I see time and time again. And so what you got to take in mind, into consideration, is this: when you are on these farms and you're trying to figure out where you need to be, you need to know if you're entering October 1st on an opener. So like I said in the first video, if you're in Wisconsin this year, October or September 12th, you're out west, tie the opener to this date. But we're going to use October 1st because it fits more opening days. If you're in a spectrum or a situation where you come into a farm and you are hunting that, and you know that you're the only one that's been in there, there's been no youth hunts, or if the youth hunts have been done by you or the landowner, and you know what's been created, you know that where the pressure's been, then you are starting that phase as phase 1. It's unpressured. So you're entering the farm, and you can be in early season patterns, hunting these early season unpressured deer with your stand locations. What are them stand locations? That's what we talked about in the first video. We talked about stand locations being in inside corners, tight to the feed, so powerful evening sits, and inside corners on a licking branch, depending on the wind, north wind, south wind, just depends on what inside corner you're hunting. Great place to focus. Tie a licking branch to it. Those situations, if you're entering it in where there's been pressure, or the hunting buddy or the hunting partner or your other friend that's leasing the property with you, or if it's a lease where there's other people hunting it, the landowner's kids are hunting it, whatever, that's, you enter these properties in, and you're now starting a phase 2 because there's other pressures. If you're entering in on a phase 2, what you need to do is your stand locations have to react to that as soon as you start. Just because you're initially starting October 1st, or if your buddy had October 1st and you're 2 weeks later than he is, and you've got a weekend or 5 days, 3, 4, 5 days to hunt, and you go to these leases or a family farm, and pressure's already been created, neighbors are doing this, that's a topic I'm going to touch on here in a minute. But when you enter in, you have to know that you have to start reacting to those your stand locations have to react to that pressure. So in other words, take those early season strategies and fast forward them. The easiest way to explain it is take the early season strategies. If it's pressure and your October lull is being forced earlier than October 11th, and it's early season because of some stuff that I implemented before. What you do, guys, is you fast forward your stand locations ahead. So in other words, your stand locations that you may usually hunt in a normal situation, a different farm, different region, over Halloween, last weekend of October, those stand locations are now is now what you're hunting at that time. You're not hunting the out closer to your destination feed locations. You are back in, you're hunting those late October movements earlier in the year. So your stand locations that you're looking to hang need to exist with your pressure. If you get to the farm, there's pressure there. Your trail camera's already starting to tell the telltale October low pressure is coming, and you know you're going to be there. That's why the trail camera, especially cell cams, are powerful. You need to move those stands before you even get there, or when you get there, before you even hunt. Pull the stands, have new stands with you, or if you're lucky enough to have already had those stands for later in the season hung, take yourself off the feed, get back into those, further in those transition areas on the benches, not as tight to the bedding areas, but go, let's just use the end of October strategies. Those end of October strategies have to be implemented. Those are the strategies that you need to be implementing earlier in the year, as early as the end of the first week sometimes. So, and I see this time and time again. Perfect example is I had a client, and I always ring true to this. I had a client in Wisconsin, and I had hunters in before, and they came down. There was 3 weeks before them. Some people, whether, you know, kind of forced a couple bad hunts, some unpronounced, unknown pressure that I didn't know about when I leased the farm. I had 2,200 acres down there that I had leased, and big chunk of ground. So, you know, your first initial thought is, you know, we can get away with some stuff, but we had some people coming in on us. There was a whole bunch of stuff that played into it. Fact of the matter is, this would have been 15 years ago. Fact of the matter is, there was pressure that were implemented, and I was reacting as our hunters were coming in. Now looking back at it, I should have had the first week of October hunters hunting into the third week phases, or at least the second phase stand strategies. And the reason is that client that came in on the third week after that pressure, and obviously we were adding to the pressure, the trespassers were adding to the pressure, the state land next to it was adding to the pressures, and I always resort back to this one because it taught me a lesson, and since then I always implemented this strategy. Is I actually had him hunting the third week. So his hunt would have been like the 17th, around the 20th of October. So well before, you know, a week or two before the pre-rut, and, you know, 3 weeks before the rut. And I had him hunting. I reacted, I thought about it, I sat down, and I figured it out, and I had him hunt the areas that I would have had normally been hunting in the rut. I had him hunt it, and he was in the stand the first night, killed 154-inch 10. So ever since then, I reacted to those situations, and that is something, guys, I can't tell you from above. I can't tell you any other time than getting on your properties or communicating, consulting right back and forth with you guys. But that's something that a consultant, myself, a lot of times can't tell you. That's something that you have to know as a hunter, as your area that you're hunting on public ground, the area that you're hunting, the farm that you're hunting yourself. Those are the pressure things that you have to know going into it. That's why these 3 phases are so important to understand. This video, like I said, is what to do if you enter that spectrum, and you're already your pressure is already established in a phase 2 pressure, but by date you're ahead of that. What do? What happens is, most of the time, 99.9% of the time, what happens is folks just go with their stand placements per the date, not the pressure. And it's a huge misstep. It's a huge misstep. my camera is sitting on top of my camera right now, my trail camera. Those cameras, especially cell cameras, are your ticket. If you get frugal enough with these cameras and you get proficient enough with them, they are going to tell you the ins and outs of what's happening when you're not there. Years ago, guys, when my paycheck as a guide depended on this in a low pressure state such as Illinois, I didn't have the opportunity. I was one of those guys that had myself and the gentleman, a good friend of mine that I managed the lodge with down there. We took in the first trail camera that was ever it was a prototype. They brought it to us and wanted us to use it. It was a from Field and Stream, and if I can find some pictures of it somewhere, I'll implement these on there. Make a long story short, it was on a tripod. So it was on a tripod. We set it on the edge of a bean field. Got great pictures, 35mm camera, and we thought we had the world by the tail. And at that time, we did. Now looking back at it, the opportunities that are at hand with these cell cameras, boy, I'd like to go back and do that all over again in Illinois with today's stuff. So take advantage of that. Don't overlook them. Don't overlook what the good Lord has given us and technology has given us. Use that, and that's how you implement these. But like I said, this strategies, and what I'm saying is this strategy is something that I feel very strongly about, that is overlooked, and it's something that I didn't coin the phrase the pressure, but I have definitely worked on it over the years, and because then my paycheck depended on it. Now my reputation depends on it, and my paycheck too. If I don't bring to you guys what works, then my reputation as far as a manager and a consultant and a designer, it doesn't work. And I'm here to tell you, this is one of the things that I can guarantee you without a doubt in my mind that works. And that's why it's just understanding how to react with your stand placements per the pressure. So when you come into, so as a recap, you come into these pressure situations, let's use that again, touch on that again. You come into a lease, your buddy's been there the week before, you get to hunt the second week or the third week, and your neighbors. So that's one thing I did before, and I'm trying to bounce around here, but that's one thing that you have to keep in mind, guys, is when you're in an area that offers small properties, and you're not in an area like further out west or the deep south, or that offer thousands and thousands of acres of tract. If you're in an area with small parcels, and you know what my terminology is, or my interpretation is of a small parcel, if you are in those areas, that you have to understand that you're not encompassing the day-to-day movement. Does it happen? Yes, it happens, and that's why we got to get the habitat right. But you don't encompass the 365-day-a-year travel of these deer. You just want that to be right during the fall, like we've talked and we teach and we preach. But with that said, you have to understand that you're not the only one that are influencing those deer as far as the pressure. You're not the only one that is contributing to it. Object is to take yourself out of the pressure, that pressure portion of the scheme, of the spectrum, and make sure that you are doing everything that you can, side accessing, giving the center of that farm what it needs to produce and to maintain, side accessing these stands, and do not add those wrong steps to the pressure. And then this idea will ring true to you that I'm speaking of right now. Side accessing, getting in from the sides of these farms, and reacting to what pressure is that you've created, your hunting partners created, your lease partners created, family members have created, the state land that butts up to your farm, whatever that case is, has created this pressure. You have to know how that has affected the deer. Like I said in the video, there's 3 steps there that we went through. This one is a kind of the end of it as far as the 4th step, the second video. What do I do if I enter this and these deer are already pressured, and this is the first time I got to hunt? Whether that's October 1st or that's October 17th, what do I do? You have to know where they are at before you can know before you can know where you have to be, you have to know where they're going to be. That old saying, you can't kill a deer where he's at, you got to kill him where he's going to be, is true. But in this thing, you got to add a portion of this. You got to add to where he's going to be, what he's doing, because of what humans and pressure has created. And if you just go into it every October 1st, you go into it thinking early season unpressured deer, they're going to the bean field, this is where I'm going to kill them, you're a step behind. 50% of the time, 75% of the time, you're a step behind. Do we get lucky sometimes in that particular deer or that particular farm hasn't been pressured? Yes. That's not the majority of the farms they set foot on, but my goal is, in my profession, is to get you to that platform where you know that when you hunt, you're hunting phase 1, a couple weeks later you're hunting phase 2, a couple weeks later you're hunting phase 3, and your stand locations all change to fit that pattern. And then when you get to the pre-rut and you get going into the rut, then you have you know, some of the best sits, some of the best morning sits, and you're adding to those you know, those bucks on your wall. That's the whole strategy. But like I said, this whole video is trying to understand how do you react, where do you need to be. And the biggest thing is, I can't tell you exactly what stand that is, what tree you need to be on per farm, but what I'm telling you is you need to adjust. And the best way to explain it is that, just simply that, if your use, whatever scheme, whatever stand location, whatever aerial has showed you, the topo, whatever you're using, that you know that you should be on the top of that ridge, the bottom of that ridge, in that saddle, whatever it is, during the pre-rut and the rut, know where you're supposed to be the end of October. And if the pressure kicks in earlier, those deer go to that pattern, that they're accustomed to doing by date. They go to that pattern depending on pressure. You just have to react to it. So what I find is that's, you know, like I said, those early season sits that are in pressure situations, I end up pulling my guys into them. Or, you know, now not guiding full time, as I'm doing this full time, and we recommend that you take that stand location out of the edge of the bean fields and you put it back in those inside corners, and then you're back in those transition areas on licking branches or water holes. You're on the benches, and then closer to the rut, you're next to the bedding area, downwind of the bedding area, not in the bedding area, not hanging tree stands in the bedding area, not hanging trail cameras in the bedding area. That's where you need to be. You need to be in those off the bedding area patterns because of the pressure. And they'll be there. The more pressure that adds, it doesn't matter the date. It's the pressure. The more pressure that builds, the faster they're going to go to that phase 3. And if you can react ahead of them, it's like hunting elk out west. It's like, you know, in the morning, you got to be to the top of the mountain. You got to be to the top of the mountain so your thermals rise when you're elk hunting in the mornings. And if you're not going to beat them. That's the name of the game on a morning elk hunt. It's the same theory as whitetail. You have to be to the top of that. You have to be ahead of them. You have to be at top of that phase spectrum before they get there, and that, or during their movement, and that's the same pattern. So I hope that makes sense, guys. You know, I have a lot of passion in this, so sometimes it runs a little lengthy, but that's the second video. That's the second portion, and as we go, I'll tie some things, some scenarios into that on the phases. But that is the second video, the fourth step of how you react. What do you do? Where do I need to be? And like I said, guys, hang in there. We're getting closer to the go time, and a lot of stuff being done in the woods right now. Be safe, be smart, and you know, research this one a little bit more. Something that I think will help you going into the fall of 2020. Thanks.